eventually I'm going to get a microphone and be able to do this at my desktop or my laptop rather than with my phone and not have to stop every 15 minutes. Anyway, I've missed a couple days of doing this, and the last day I did this I only did one 15-minute video, but here we go. I'm going to talk a little bit about comparing my setting Divine Blood to some of the other similar urban fantasy, urban horror types, supernatural horror type settings. First, just the general thing. Divine Blood is a setting, is sort of a all myths are true type setting, where most of the myths around the world have some sort of factual basis in truth. There is magic, there are demons, there are gods, there are different species around the world, that sort of thing. There are a number of things like this. And I'm going to go ahead and start with one of the ones that I've been watching recently, which is I started watching the Supernatural series. Finally got a hold of it for the first time, up to season 3, and I've read a little bit more about what happens afterwards. Anyway, as compares Divine Blood and Supernatural. There are more supernatural creatures in Divine Blood than there are in Supernatural. There are a good 55 million people or creatures that have supernatural abilities. And in all honesty, the Winchester brothers, with their spells and their exorcisms, would fit in that 55 million. But anyway, yeah, there are a lot more. There are 150,000 demons living on Earth at any given time, because Yomi's crowded. As compared to when the Winchesters thought a couple hundred demons at the end of season 2 being released was a lot. Granted, the demons in Divine Blood are not the demons in Supernatural. But in any case, the other thing is, most of the monsters in Supernatural are very, very human-looking. Even the werewolves, when they shape change, they grow fangs and they get claws and stuff like that, but they still look very human. This is similar to Divine Blood, where most of the successful species are also very human-seeming, or can appear very human-seeming. However, there is a lot more in the way of, shape-shifting in Divine Blood. One of the species that can be called werewolves actually does become a wolf. The one that is most common actually does become a wolf. And there are a number of humans that can shapeshift, and there are the Gorgons, which are shapeshifters. So shapeshifting is a lot more common and a lot more complete than it is in Supernatural. Also, however, the main difference between the Supernatural critters and the Divine Blood critters is the critters in Supernatural are often more powerful and are usually predatory with regards to humans. The supernatural sentients in Divine Blood are not so often as powerful, and they're not usually predatory towards humans. The evolutionary path of supernatural critters in Supernatural, with the Winchesters and all that, seems to have gone towards the entities mimicking their prey. So it's a predator-prey dynamic between humans and the other critters. Whereas in Divine Blood, most of the supernaturals that evolved to mimic humans in order to share in the kill. It's more a matter of the way you have a remora following a shark than than anything else. And it doesn't seem that way, because the entities that are non-human seem to have powers. Even the lower ones They're not really the ones that aren't as trained up to be fighting aren't really as dangerous as aren't really any more dangerous than any other person because they just don't think of it as a weapon. But they still have these blatant differences. So even though a human being has just just as much ability to kill as they do, they seem to have these advantages. But even if you would discount all the different things just a normal human being can do with like picking up a gun or whatever, which the non-humans can also do, the non-humans in Divine Blood are far outnumbered by humans with powers. Of the 55 million or so supernatural entities with supernatural abilities in Divine Blood, 5 million, and that's on Earth, not counting hidden realms aside from Yomi and Nirvana. But anyway, of that 55 million, 5 million aren't human. The other 50 million are human, which means, the average human may not have as many psychic abilities or any psychic abilities as compared to the average therianthrope or the average vampire or the average she. But the average psychic is still human. And so yes, the non-humans are the remora to humanity's shark. And the demons and gods are basically the leftovers of a somewhat vanishing species. Though they have potential to repopulate fairly well. Anyway, so that seems to be the difference, one of the main differences. Supernatural critters in Supernatural evolved to hunt humans. Supernatural critters in Divine Blood evolved to live with humans and share with humans. This tends to result. This seems to explain why the ones in Supernatural are harder to kill and more powerful, because they are far outnumbered and they're hunting a prey that vastly outnumbers them and can turn and kill them eventually. As adverse Divine Blood, where they're easier to kill, are in far greater number and tend to fit in better and are slightly because they don't tend to have to kill anybody to survive. Then you get to let's say Dresden, and Dresden universe supernatural critters often don't have souls. Pretty much anything sentient, anything that can think in Divine Blood has a soul. In Dresden universe, the fairies don't have souls, demons don't have souls, and angels seem to be just a soul. I'm not sure how that works. But what it comes down to is that a lot of the entities, undead or monsters or whatever, in Dresden do not have free will. They do not get to choose how they act. They just act. As adverse, the supernatural entities in Divine Blood, which are free-willed sentients, mortals, mostly. Also, belief of the population really has an effect on entities in Dresden. For example, if everybody on Earth forgot vampires ever existed, I mean, no stories, they just suddenly, all the books about vampires were gone, all the movies were gone, no one could ever remember even anything like vampires. It's not a matter of, oh, they don't exist, it's a matter of never having heard of it. If that were to happen, then vampires would not be able to come into Earth in Dresden verse. Which likewise, there's an entire organization that exists to keep people from learning about the existence of such things, because if people learn about them, then they can come in. And the whole thing with the Fae, they almost got rid of the Fae, and then somebody did a big popular story about fairies, and suddenly the Fae were back because people believed in them again, or people knew about them. So, if a belief has an intense effect in Dresden on people, on entities around them. As adverse in Divine Blood, disbelieving or not knowing about X critter is not going to make them not exist or not be able to come into the world, since they have as much physical reality and free will and a soul as anybody else. They aren't just magical constructs, which almost seems to be what the Dresden verse critters are, but they are entities. They are souled entities. They have a will. They have free will. They have souls. They exist. They have a physical and material existence in addition to a spiritual one. So they are not limited to the things of the attitudes of other people or the beliefs of other people. They are not affected by them so much. Anyway, and apparently that belief aspect is heavy in Supernatural as well, whereas it's been brought up in some of the episodes where they say how many critters in Supernatural exist only because people believe they exist. Okay, that said, one of the things is Divine Blood is really kind of built on a modern fantasy, urban fantasy type feel, as adverse a modern horror, which means when I was doing the Divine Blood setting, I was building it around a sense of wonder, a sense of the epic heroism and all that. And even though really bad stuff happens and there's some really whacked out critters there, the majority of a lot of the feel in Divine Blood is things are getting better, even though there's going to be this really nasty bump in the road coming up here that might destroy everything. It might send the car of reality into a tailspin off the cliff, but in the overall, aside from this potential death-dealing accident that's coming up in the world setting, overall the world is getting better as things go along. Whereas in Supernatural, things are moving towards the apocalypse, and that seems to be what's happening in Dresden. That the attitude in Dresden and Supernatural is the apocalypse is the end of the story, and you either stop it or it happens. Whereas the apocalypse in Divine Blood is sort of the story, but there is an assumption that there could be something after. That there should be something after. That the apocalypse is not the end. It's a bump in the story of the world. So that's another big thing. But having the greater numbers, the only reason I can do the greater numbers is because the supernatural creatures in Divine Blood do not stand out. If they stood out as much as they do in Supernatural, if they were as powerful as the ones that the Winchesters fight, or as the critters in Dresden, then there is no way that you could keep them secret once they hit a population of even 10 or 20 million, much less 55 million. Probably even less than that. But still, overall, yeah, that seems to be the main difference between the three, between My Divine Blood and Supernatural and Dresden verse. I really like Dresden. I kind of like Supernatural, though I've been warned not to watch it past season 5. And I don't have time to talk about any other settings, and I haven't really thought heavily about any other urban fantasy settings for this. There is Lovecraft, but Lovecraft doesn't even enter the view. Lovecraft is even less hopeful than Supernatural. Mostly Lovecraft's stories in Divine Blood are considered to be the rantings of a bigoted non-humanist, human supremacist. Anyway, I think that will do it for now.